So there I was, watching what could only be described as the galaxy's most expensive way to traumatize young adults, also known as the Galactic Military Academy's Final Combat Assessment. Picture this: a sprawling complex of chrome and crystal floating in the void, where the best and brightest from across known space come to learn the fine art of not dying horribly in combat. Very inspiring stuff. Maya Torres stood in formation with her squad, looking about as intimidated as someone waiting for coffee, which, knowing Maya, was probably exactly what she was thinking about. The human had this annoying habit of appearing completely ordinary right up until the moment she did something that made everyone else question their life choices. Medium height, dark hair usually escaping whatever regulation style she attempted, and the kind of smile that suggested she knew something you didn't. "Listen up, maggots!" Commander Vex's voice could shatter glass, assuming the glass hadn't already fled in terror. The reptilian drill instructor stood 8 feet tall, with scales that had seen more battles than most cadets had seen breakfast. His yellow eyes swept over the mixed species formation like searchlights looking for weakness. "Today marks your final examination, the test that separates the warriors from the dead warriors." Standing next to Maya, Cadet Klaxon buzzed with nervous energy, literally. The insectoid's 4 arms were clicking in agitation, compound eyes reflecting the overhead lights like a disco ball having an anxiety attack. Klaxon had graduated top of every class, mastered every weapon, and could recite military regulations in 12 languages. Unfortunately, none of that helped with the fact that they were about to face something that 8 previous top graduates for lunch. "Oh good," whispered Finn, Maya's human squad mate. "More death metaphors. Just what I needed to calm my nerves." Finn had the distinction of being the only person at the academy who could make Maya look like the serious one. He'd joined the military because, and I quote, "it seemed easier than getting a real job." So far, that decision was not aging well. Commander Vex's grin revealed teeth that evolution had clearly designed for nightmare fuel. For 200 years, the apex predator survival test has been the Academy's ultimate challenge. You will face a creature so dangerous, so perfectly evolved for killing, that entire civilizations have built their military doctrine around avoiding it. Maya raised her hand. Because of course she did. "What is it, Torres? Is it furry?" The formation fell silent. Even the Academy's ventilation system seemed to pause in confusion. "I'm sorry, what?" Vex's head tilted like a confused predator. "The creature. Does it have fur, or maybe scales, feathers? I'm just trying to get a mental picture." Klaxon's buzzing increased in pitch. "Torres, why does the creature's covering matter for combat assessment?" Maya shrugged. "Just curious about what we're dealing with." Vex's laugh sounded like a landslide having a bad day. "Oh, you'll find out soon enough. The Shadow Maw has been the Academy's final test since its founding. In all that time, not one cadet has ever defeated it. Most don't survive the encounter long enough to file a proper report." "Defeated?" Maya asked. "Or just made friends with it?" The silence stretched so long that somewhere in the Academy's lower levels, a maintenance droid probably filed a noise complaint. "Made friends," Vex repeated slowly as if testing whether the words were toxic. "Yeah. I mean, maybe it's just lonely. Have you tried asking what it wants?" Finn Stage whispered, "Maya, I don't think the murder monster is interested in emotional support." But Maya was already lost in thought, that dangerous look creeping across her face. The same expression she'd worn right before she'd somehow talked their weapons instructor into letting her test whether Academy-issued plasma rifles worked better with "please" and "thank you." Spoiler alert, they didn't, but the instructor had been so confused by the attempt that Maya passed the creativity portion of the exam. Commander Vex decided that dignifying this conversation with further response would probably violate several laws of physics. "You have 48 hours to prepare. Use them wisely. Dismissed." As the formation broke up, Klaxon scuttled over to Maya with the enthusiasm of someone about to explain why everyone else was wrong. "Torres, your approach to military science is highly irregular. The Shadow Maw is not a social problem to be solved with interpersonal communication." "Maybe not," Maya agreed, but it doesn't hurt to consider all the options. All the options include not dying horribly, Finn added helpfully. Maya grinned, and somewhere in the Academy's vast database, her psychological profile probably updated itself with another red flag. Don't worry, guys, I've got this. That, as it turned out, was either the most reassuring thing anyone had heard all day or the most terrifying. With Maya Torres, the distinction was often academic. The Academy's main auditorium had seen a lot of things over the years. Graduation ceremonies, medal presentations, the occasional diplomatic incident when someone served the wrong species-preferred atmospheric mix at dinner. But judging by the way even the building's structural support seemed to lean away from Commander Vex as he prepared his presentation, this was going to be special. Behold, Vex announced, his claws clicking across the holographic display controls, the shadow maw of Zerion Prime. The lights dimmed and a three-dimensional image materialized above the assembled cadets. What appeared could generously be described as evolution's answer to the question, what if nightmares had nightmares? 12 feet of muscle and fury, 6 limbs ending in claws that could probably cut through Academy armor plating, and a mouth full of teeth that suggested its species had never heard of vegetarianism. Sweet, merciful stars, someone whispered from the back rows. Probably a Zenthari. They were always dramatic. The shadow maw, Vex continued with the enthusiasm of someone describing their favorite hobby, represents the apex of predatory evolution. Native to Zerion Prime, a death world so hostile that its other inhabitants include acid-spitting rock formations and carnivorous weather patterns. Maya leaned forward in her seat, studying the hologram with the intensity of a scholar examining ancient texts. Does it wag its tail when it's happy? Every head in the auditorium turned toward her. The collective stare could have powered a small space station. I'm sorry, said Klaxon, compound eyes literally buzzing with confusion. Did you just ask if the Academy's ultimate killing machine wags its tail? Well, yeah. Look at the musculature around the base. That's built for expression, not just balance. And see how the ears are positioned? That's classic social signaling anatomy. Finn raised his hand tentatively. Maya, I think you're looking at this wrong. Am I, though? Commander Vex cleared his throat with the sound of grinding stone. Perhaps we should review some historical footage to clarify the nature of your opponent. The hologram shifted, displaying archived recordings from previous tests. The first showed a squad of Corvin warriors, each standing 7 feet tall and built like mobile fortresses. The shadow maw had appeared in their test arena like liquid death, moving faster than the eye could track. Within 30 seconds, all 5 Corvins were fleeing toward the emergency exits, their proud warrior culture apparently having a strategic retreat clause for situations involving imminent disembowelment. Note, Vex commented with satisfaction, how the creature displays perfect hunting behavior. Silent approach, explosive attack, systematic pursuit. Maya said, chin in her hand. Or it's playing chase. Look how it stops pursuing once they reach the safe zone. That's not hunting behavior. That's play behavior with boundaries. The next recording featured a Zenthari psychic warfare specialist, someone trained to break enemy minds with a thought. The cadet had lasted exactly 47 seconds before the Shadow Maw's approach had reduced them to a gibbering mess of tentacles and regret. Fascinating defensive evolution, Vex noted, complete immunity to psychic manipulation. Or, Maya suggested, its thoughts are just really, really simple, like play now, why no play? That would scramble a psychic pretty effectively. Klaxon's buzzing had reached frequencies that were probably violating Academy noise ordinances. Torres, your interpretations demonstrate fundamental misunderstanding of predator-prey dynamics. Do they, though? The final recording showed the Academy's most advanced combat cyborg, equipped with enough firepower to level a small city. The machine had calculated optimal attack patterns, deployed experimental weapons, and maintained perfect tactical discipline right up until the moment the Shadow Maw had treated it like a particularly interesting chew toy. The cyborg had been retrieved in 17 separate pieces, most of them still sparking. Observe, Vex said with the pride of someone showing off their favorite murder pet. How the creature dismantles even our most advanced combat systems. Maya tilted her head, studying the footage with scientific interest. Actually, it looks like it's trying to figure out how the cyborg works. See how it's systematically taking apart the joints? That's investigative behavior, not aggressive behavior. It's just really enthusiastic about learning. The auditorium had gone so quiet that the Academy's life support systems sounded like thunderstorms. Torres, Claxon said carefully, are you suggesting that the most dangerous creature in Academy history is simply curious? I'm suggesting, Maya replied, standing up and stretching, that maybe we've been looking at this all wrong. Has anyone ever tried just talking to it? Commander Vex's laugh could have registered on seismographs. Talk to it? Torres, this creature has killed more combat specialists than some wars. Yeah, but has anyone tried asking it to stop? Finn buried his head in his hands. Maya, please tell me you are not planning to walk up to the murder monster and ask it about its feelings. Maya's grin was the kind that made Academy instructors reach for their emergency communication devices. Don't worry, Finn. I've got a plan. That, muttered someone from the back rows, is exactly what we're worried about. As the presentation continued, Maya took careful notes, but instead of tactical assessments and weapon recommendations, her notebook filled with observations about pack behavior, social isolation stress, and the psychological effects of prolonged captivity on intelligent predators, because Maya Torres had recognized something that 200 years of military experts had missed. The Shadowmaw wasn't just a monster. It was a very, very lonely monster. And Maya Torres had never met a lonely creature she couldn't help. The Academy's preparation period had officially begun, which meant every corner of the facility was buzzing with the kind of frantic energy usually reserved for natural disasters or surprise inspections. Cadets scattered to their preferred preparation methods like students cramming for finals. Except the final exam in this case involved not becoming monster food. In Training Bay Alpha, Claxon had assembled what could generously be called a mobile weapons platform, or more accurately described as what happens when someone with 4 arms gets excited about military hardware. The insectoid was simultaneously calibrating a plasma rifle, adjusting armor servos, programming combat algorithms, and reviewing tactical manuals. Multitasking had never looked so terrifying. The key, Claxon explained to anyone within buzzing distance, is overwhelming technological superiority combined with predictive combat modeling. The creature may be fast, but it cannot outthink properly calibrated military systems. Meanwhile, in Training Bay Beta, a group of Zenthari cadets had formed a meditation circle. Their tentacles intertwined as they attempted to achieve what their instructor called warrior enlightenment, and what everyone else called trying really hard not to think about becoming monster kibble. Their psychic humming had reached frequencies that were making nearby equipment malfunction. Finn had taken the practical approach of hiding in the Academy's recreation center, alternating between stress eating and practicing what he optimistically called tactical sprinting. This mostly involved running laps while screaming motivational phrases like, "Don't be food," and "Legs don't fail me now." And Maya Torres was in the library. Not the tactical database, not the weapons archive, not even the survival manual collection. She was in the xenobiology section, surrounded by dusty texts about animal behavior and ecosystem management, looking like someone who'd found exactly what they were hoping for, Christmas morning. Xerion Prime Ecosystem Analysis 3rd edition, she murmured, pulling another volume from the shelf. Predator-prey relationships in high-gravity environments, social structures of apex species. She paused at the last one. Oh, this is interesting. According to the Academy's records, nobody had checked out these particular books in over 30 years. Most cadets preparing for the Shadowmaw test focused on combat techniques, weapon specifications, and armor upgrades. Maya was apparently more interested in understanding what made their opponent tick. Torres! Claxon's voice carried across the library like an alarm system having a nervous breakdown. The insectoid scuttled between the stacks, forearms loaded with technical manuals. What are you doing? The test is in 18 hours. Reading, Maya replied, not looking up from her book. About what? Advanced combat techniques? Weapon maintenance? Emergency medical procedures? Pack hunting behavior in social carnivores. Claxon's compound eyes flickered in what might have been confusion, or the early stages of a complete system shutdown. Pack hunting? Torres, there is only one shadow maw. Yeah, Maya said, finally looking up. That's the problem. How is that a problem? One creature means concentrated threat assessment and singular target elimination. Maya bookmarked her page and leaned back in her chair. Claxon, what happens when you take a social animal and lock it up alone for years? It becomes more dangerous due to psychological stress. It becomes lonely and confused, and it forgets how to interact with other creatures without accidentally hurting them. Claxon's buzzing shifted to a higher pitch. You are suggesting the Academy's ultimate combat test is actually sad? I'm suggesting it's probably desperate for companionship and has no idea how to ask for it appropriately. This was apparently too much for Claxon's worldview to process. The insectoid stood motionless for several seconds, compound eyes rotating through what looked like a complete diagnostic cycle. That, Claxon finally said, is the most ridiculous theory I've ever heard. Maybe, Maya agreed cheerfully, but what if it's not? While this philosophical discussion was reaching new levels of academic absurdity, Maya had been quietly accumulating supplies from the Academy's various departments. Her official requisition forms read like the shopping list of someone planning a very strange picnic. Protein rations from the cafeteria, synthetic meat treats from the veterinary section, and what appeared to be several yards of Academy issue rope. Torres, said Finn, appearing at her table with the sweaty desperation of someone who'd been running for his life as practice. Please tell me you have a real plan and this is not just you being your usual optimistic self about impossible situations. Maya patted the stack of books beside her. I have a plan. Does it involve weapons? Nope. Armor? Nope. Running away really fast? Definitely not. Finn sat down heavily, resignation written across his face in letters large enough to be seen from orbit. You're going to try to pet it, aren't you? I'm going to try to help it, Maya corrected. There's a difference. Maya, the difference between helping and getting eaten is usually measured in how many pieces they find of you afterward. But Maya was already lost in her research again, cross-referencing behavioral patterns and social structures with the kind of focus she usually reserved for finding the Academy cafeteria's hidden dessert stash. Because somewhere in these dusty volumes was the key to understanding the galaxy's most feared predator, and Maya Torres was absolutely convinced that understanding was just the first step toward friendship, which, depending on your perspective, was either brilliantly insightful or spectacularly suicidal. With Maya, those categories had a tendency to overlap. The Academy's test arena was a monument to the engineering principle that if you're going to traumatize students, you might as well do it with style. A massive dome stretched 500 meters across, containing a carefully crafted jungle ecosystem, complete with towering trees, hidden caves, and enough shadowy corners to hide several nightmares. The observation deck overlooked this technological marvel like a luxury box at the galaxy's most terrifying sporting event. Commander Vex stood at the viewing window with the satisfaction of someone about to watch his favorite horror movie. Cadets will be inserted at random locations throughout the arena. Survival time minimum is 1 hour. Victory condition is... He paused for dramatic effect. Well, there isn't one. Nobody's ever achieved victory. Maya Torres stood in the staging area, checking her supplies one final time. While her classmates were weighed down with enough military hardware to invade a small planet, Maya's loadout consisted of a standard Academy jumpsuit, emergency rations, and a length of rope. She looked like someone prepared for a camping trip, not mortal combat. Torres, Claxon buzzed frantically, adjusting the 17 different targeting systems mounted on their combat harness. It is not too late to requisition proper equipment. I'm good, thanks. You have no weapons. Don't need any. No armor. Would just slow me down. No survival gear. Maya patted her pocket full of synthetic meat treats. Got everything I need. Finn was having what could charitably be called a pre-combat pep talk with himself. and less charitably be described as a complete emotional breakdown. Okay, Finn, you can do this. It's just a giant murder machine. People face giant murder machines all the time. Probably. Somewhere. Maybe not this specific murder machine, but the principle is sound. The arena's entry portal cycled open with a hiss of pressurized air that sounded suspiciously like the Academy's way of saying, "Abandon hope, all ye who enter here." "Cadets," Vex announced over the communication system, "you have 10 minutes to establish positions before the Shadow Maw is released. Use them wisely." The mixed species group scattered into the artificial jungle like students fleeing a pop quiz. Klaxon immediately began setting up what appeared to be a small military base, complete with sensor arrays and automated defense turrets. A squad of Xanthari cadets found a defensible cave and started their psychic preparation rituals. Finn located the tallest tree he could find and began climbing with the enthusiasm of someone who'd just remembered that most predators couldn't fly. Maya Torres walked calmly to a small clearing near the arena's center and sat down cross-legged on a fallen log. "Torres!" Vex's voice crackled through the comm system. "What are you doing?" "Waiting," Maya replied, pulling out one of her books. "This is a combat simulation, not a library." "I know." In the observation deck, Academy instructors were having the kind of hushed conversation usually reserved for watching traffic accidents in slow motion. "Should we intervene?" asked Dr. Hendricks, the Academy's chief psychologist. "The human appears to be having a stress-induced break from reality." "Negative," Vex decided. "If Torres wants to become monster food through poor decision-making, that's valuable data for future human recruitment standards." The 10-minute countdown reached 0. Deep in the arena's sublevels, containment protocols disengaged with a series of mechanical clicks that sounded like the universe's largest combination lock opening. Emergency lighting bathed the release chamber in blood-red illumination as magnetic restraints withdrew. The Shadow Maw emerged from its holding cell like liquid death given physical form. 12 feet of predatory perfection, it moved through the artificial jungle with the flowing grace of something that evolution had spent millions of years optimizing for killing. Its 6 limbs carried it between the trees without disturbing so much as a leaf, while sensory organs that made Academy equipment look primitive scanned for prey. The hunt began. Klaxon's carefully prepared defensive position lasted approximately 43 seconds. The creature appeared in their sensor grid like a glitch, moving too fast and too unpredictably for targeting computers to track. Military-grade plasma bolts seared through empty air, while the Shadow Maw flowed around defensive barriers like water around rocks. When the screaming started, Klaxon's 4 arms were all pointing different weapons in different directions while their combat computer displayed nothing but error messages. "Tactical retreat!" Klaxon shrieked, abandoning their equipment and fleeing toward the emergency extraction point with all 4 limbs pumping. The Xanthari psychics fared even worse. Their attempt to establish mental contact with the creature resulted in what the Academy's medical staff would later describe as acute psychological feedback trauma. The cave that had seemed so defensible became an echo chamber of alien screams as trained psychic warfare specialists discovered that the Shadow Maw's thought patterns were apparently immune to telepathic influence and possibly toxic to extended mental contact. "Emergency extraction!" came the call over the comm system as purple tentacled figures fled their cave like it was on fire. Finn's tree-climbing strategy worked right up until the Shadow Maw demonstrated that 12 feet of predatory muscle could jump significantly higher than Academy physics instructors had calculated. The creature's claws embedded in the trunk 10 feet below Finn's position, and the subsequent shaking had turned tree climbing from a defensive strategy into an impromptu carnival ride. "Why is it shaking the tree?" Finn screamed, clinging to branches like his life depended on it, which it probably did. "It's trying to get to you," Vex replied helpfully through the comm. "I figured that out." In the observation deck, Academy officials watched their carefully designed ultimate test devolve into what could generously be called chaos, or more accurately described as a complete disaster. 200 years of Academy tradition were being systematically demolished by one very effective predator. "Sir," reported an aide, "all cadets except Torres have reached minimum safe distance from the creature. Commander Vex trained his viewing scope on the clearing where Maya Torres still sat peacefully on her log, reading her book while the sounds of mayhem echoed from every other section of the arena. "Torres," he barked into the comm. "The Shadow Maw is heading directly toward your position. Move to emergency extraction immediately." Maya looked up from her book, glanced around at the jungle that was now ominously quiet, and smiled. "Actually, Commander, I think I'll stay right here." "Torres, that is a direct order." "And I'm respectfully declining. Don't worry, though. I've got this." The Shadow Maw emerged from the tree line like a nightmare materializing from shadow, moving with predatory grace toward the small human sitting calmly in its path. Every muscle was coiled for the killing strike, claws extended, death incarnate in biological form. Maya Torres closed her book, stood up and pulled a synthetic meat treat from her pocket. "Hey there, big guy," she said conversationally. "You look like you could use a friend." The Academy's observation deck had gone so quiet that you could hear the collective intake of breath from 50 different species, which sounded remarkably like the universe's largest vacuum cleaner starting up. Every instructor, every monitoring system, every emergency protocol was focused on the small clearing where Maya Torres stood face to face with 200 years of Academy legend. The Shadow Maw had frozen mid-stalk, its 6 limbs locked in perfect predatory position. 12 feet of apex evolution, muscles coiled for a killing strike, faced off against one human holding what appeared to be a snack. "Torres," Commander Vex's voice crackled through the comm system with the urgency of someone watching a traffic accident in slow motion. "Step away from the creature immediately." "It's okay, Commander," Maya replied, not taking her eyes off the Shadow Maw. "We're just getting acquainted." She held out the synthetic meat treat, palm open, arm extended in the universal gesture that had been working on predators since the first human figured out that sharing food was better than becoming food. "I know you're probably confused," Maya said conversationally, as if discussing the weather with a creature that could disembowel her in 12 different ways. "Being locked up alone for years, only seeing other creatures when they're running and screaming, that's got to be rough." The Shadow Maw's head tilted slightly, sensory organs focusing on this strange small creature that wasn't behaving according to 200 years of established precedent. Instead of fear scent and panic sounds, this one radiated calm curiosity and something else. Something the creature's instincts recognized but couldn't immediately categorize. "You're not really a monster, are you?" Maya continued, taking a small step forward. "You're just lonely." In the observation deck, Dr. Hendricks was frantically cross-referencing psychological profiles with xenobiological data. "Commander, Torres might actually be onto something. Social isolation in pack-hunting species can result in severe behavioral dysfunction." "Are you suggesting," Vex replied slowly, "that our ultimate combat test is actually therapy?" "I'm suggesting that 200 years of treating this creature as a weapon might have missed some important psychological factors." Meanwhile, Maya had taken another step forward, still holding out the treat. The Shadow Maw hadn't moved, but its posture had shifted subtly. The killing tension was easing, replaced by something that looked remarkably like curiosity. "See, the thing is," Maya explained, "back on Earth we figured out a long time ago that most scary creatures are just misunderstood. Take my neighbor's Rottweiler, Rex. Everyone was terrified of him because he was huge and had this deep bark, but really he just wanted belly rubs and someone to throw his ball." The Shadow Maw's ears, previously flattened against its skull in hunting mode, twitched forward slightly. "That's right," Maya said, noticing the change. "You can understand me, can't you? Maybe not the words, but the tone, the intention." She took another step forward, now within striking distance of claws that could cut through Academy armor. Her extended hand was steady as a rock. "I know you're probably thinking this is some kind of trick, that I'm going to turn aggressive like all the others, but I'm not. I'm just here to be your friend." The Shadow Maw's massive head lowered toward Maya's outstretched hand, nostrils flaring as it processed scents and pheromones. What it found was completely unprecedented in its experience. No fear, no aggression, no challenge. just curiosity, kindness, and the unmistakable chemical signature of someone who genuinely wanted to help. The creature's tongue, rough as academy-grade sandpaper and approximately the size of Maya's forearm, gently licked the treat from her palm. "There we go," Maya said softly, reaching slowly toward the creature's massive head. "Good boy. Or girl. Sorry, I should have asked about pronouns first." Her hand made contact with the Shadow Maw's skull, and the effect was immediate and dramatic. The creature's entire posture melted from predatory alertness to something that could only be described as puppy-like relief. A sound emerged from its throat that was part purr, part rumble, and entirely unlike anything the Academy's audio sensors had ever recorded. The Shadow Maw, terror of the Academy, nightmare of cadets, ultimate test of combat readiness, rolled over and exposed its belly. "Oh, you want belly rubs?" Maya asked, as if this was the most natural thing in the galaxy. "I can do belly rubs." The observation deck exploded in chaos as every instructor tried to process what they were witnessing. 200 years of Academy tradition, combat doctrine, and creature psychology had just been completely rewritten by one human with a pocket full of snacks. "Impossible," Klaxon buzzed from their position at the emergency extraction point. "Combat algorithms do not account for affection-based conflict resolution." "That's because," Maya called out, scratching behind the Shadow Maw's ears while it made contented rumbling sounds, "you've been treating this as a combat problem instead of a social problem." Finn's voice drifted down from his tree. "Maya, are you seriously giving the murder monster belly rubs? His name is probably something like Deathbringer or Void Ripper," Maya replied, "but I'm thinking of calling him Buddy." The Shadow Maw's tail, thick as a tree trunk and previously used only for balance and intimidation, began to wag. Commander Vex stared at the scene below with the expression of someone watching their entire worldview collapse in real time. 200 years, he muttered. 200 years of testing, and nobody thought to try kindness? "To be fair," Dr. Hendricks said, "it's not a traditional military approach. Neither is belly rubs, but apparently those work too." Maya had managed to get the Shadow Maw into what could only be described as a full-body wiggle of joy, all 6 limbs paddling in the air while she provided the kind of comprehensive belly rub that would have made Earth dogs weep with envy. "You know what you need?" Maya told her new friend. "Exercise, proper nutrition, maybe some other creatures to socialize with. How long has it been since you had a playmate?" The Shadow Maw's response was a sound somewhere between a whine and a purr, which Universal Translator protocols interpreted as too long. "Don't worry, buddy, we'll figure this out." 3 weeks later, the Galactic Military Academy looked like someone had taken everything everyone thought they knew about dangerous creature management and fed it through a paper shredder. The changes were visible from orbit, literally, since the Academy's new Interspecies Friendship Initiative required significant modifications to their training facility. Commander Vex stood in what used to be called the Arena of Death, and was now officially designated Socialization Space Alpha, watching Maya Torres give Buddy his morning walk. The Shadow Maw, former terror of the Academy, was wearing a harness made from repurposed Academy equipment and was currently fascinated by a stick that Finn was throwing for him to fetch. "I still can't process this," Vex muttered, his worldview having been so thoroughly demolished that he'd started attending Dr. Hendricks' counseling sessions. 200 years of military tradition, and we were just wrong? "Not wrong," Maya corrected, as Buddy bounded back with the stick and nearly knocked Finn over with enthusiastic affection. "Just incomplete. You were treating the symptom instead of the cause." The Academy's new approach to the former Apex Predator survival test had become the galaxy's most talked-about educational reform. Instead of throwing cadets into mortal combat with an isolated, psychologically damaged creature, the test now focused on creative problem-solving in interspecies relations. It was less dramatic than the old version, but significantly more educational, and had the added benefit of a 0% casualty rate. "The psychological evaluation results are fascinating," Dr. Hendricks reported, consulting her datapad while carefully staying out of Buddy's fetch zone. 3 weeks of proper socialization Regular exercise and consistent positive interaction have completely reversed years of isolation-induced behavioral problems. Buddy chose that moment to demonstrate his rehabilitation by gently bringing the stick to Maya, instead of, for example, using it to destroy Academy property. His tail wagged with enough enthusiasm to generate a small breeze. "Good boy, Buddy," Maya praised, scratching behind his ears in the spot that made his back leg kick involuntarily. "Who's a good apex predator? You are." Klaxon observed this interaction with the fascination of someone whose entire understanding of the universe had been politely but thoroughly corrected. "I have recalculated my combat algorithms 17 times, and none of them account for the tactical advantage of friendship." "That's because friendship isn't tactical," Maya explained, throwing the stick for another round of fetch. "It's just nice." "Nice," Klaxon repeated, compound eyes clicking as they processed this concept. An emotional state with no strategic value that somehow solved an impossible combat scenario. "Welcome to humanity," Finn said cheerfully. "We specialize in accidentally solving problems by being nice to things that could kill us." The Academy's new policies had attracted attention from across the galaxy. Delegations of military officials, xenobiologists, and confused generals arrived daily to observe the Torres method in action. Most left muttering about having to revise decades of established doctrine, but they also left with significantly lower injury reports and much happier personnel. "Torres," Commander Vex said, approaching the group with the careful respect of someone who'd learned not to question methods that worked. "You have a communication from Earth Command. Apparently, they want you to head their new Xenobiological Relations Division." Maya paused in her ear scratching to consider this. "Do I get to bring Buddy?" The communication specifically mentions full accommodation for any associated personnel, regardless of species or previous Academy classification status. "Then I accept." Buddy's tail wagging intensified, either because he understood the conversation or because Maya had found the really good scratching spot behind his left ear. Possibly both. "There's one thing I still don't understand," Vex admitted. "How did you know this would work? What if you'd been wrong?" Maya shrugged, the kind of casual gesture that had become legendary throughout the Academy. "Back home, I grew up with 3 Rottweilers and a rescue pit bull named Tank. Everyone was scared of them because they were big and looked intimidating, but they were just dogs who wanted love and attention." She looked up at Buddy, who was now lying on his back hoping for more belly rubs. "Besides, the worst-case scenario was that I'd get eaten by a lonely monster. The best-case scenario was that I'd make a new friend. Those seemed like acceptable odds." "Acceptable odds," Vex repeated slowly. Maya Torres looked at the Academy's ultimate killing machine and decided the risk of death was acceptable if it meant the creature might get belly rubs. Pretty much. Somewhere in the Academy's vast bureaucracy, Maya Torres's psychological profile was quietly updated one final time. The previous classifications of dangerously optimistic, tactically unpredictable, and prone to befriending hostile entities were replaced with a single notation: recommended for immediate promotion and diplomatic assignments involving confused monsters. As Maya prepared for her transfer to Earth Command's new division, Buddy had become something of a celebrity around the Academy. Cadets would stop by Socialization Space Alpha to watch the former terror of the Academy play fetch, chase holographic butterflies, and occasionally demonstrate his combat capabilities by very gently wrestling with volunteers who'd signed extensive waivers. "You know what the best part is?" Maya said to Finn as they watched Buddy discover the joys of the Academy regulation frisbee. "He's not the only one." "What do you mean?" Maya grinned, pulling out a data pad that contained her research into the Academy as other secure containment facilities. Turns out the Academy has been collecting dangerous creatures for training purposes for decades. A crystalline entity from the Methane Nebula that supposedly drives people insane with its song. A shape-shifting predator from the void sectors that mimics its prey perfectly. Something called a nightmare weaver that allegedly feeds on fear itself. Finn's expression shifted from curiosity to the dawning horror of someone who'd figured out where this conversation was heading. "Maya, please tell me you're not thinking what I think you're thinking." "I'm thinking," Maya said as Buddy successfully caught the frisbee and brought it back with the pride of someone who had just solved interstellar physics, that there might be a lot more lonely creatures around here who could use a friend. That's exactly what I was afraid you were thinking. But Maya Torres was already lost in planning mode. The same expression that had revolutionized Academy training protocols and turned their most dangerous test into an interspecies friendship program, because somewhere in the Academy's lower levels, there were probably dozens of creatures who'd been labeled as monsters, when all they really needed was someone to throw them a stick and tell them they were good boys. And Maya Torres had never met a monster she couldn't turn into a friend, which, depending on your perspective, was either the most hopeful thing in the galaxy or the most terrifying. With humans, the distinction was often academic anyway.